You'll often find in domestic violence over 90% of cases there is a form of financial abuse in that as well.
Wow, 90%, that's a huge statistic.
Yeah, it's enormous, but it's not often spoken about. We often, when the Me Too movement came out, it was all about sexual and physical abuse, but there's a huge financial element in that as well. When most women are asked, well, why did you stay if it was so bad? When we, jump on the victim blaming bandwagon, it's usually because of the money.
What would be your advice to a 15-year-old girl that's coming up into this world?
Oh, look, letting her know right from the start she's a strong, capable, independent, amazing lady. And I think being financially educated and literate from a very early age is really important, and never, ever giving up complete financial independence.
What does it take to be a financially empowered woman? And what can financially empowered women do together to change the world? A shocking statistic is that around 400,000 women in Australia are at risk of homelessness, and the cause of this is the lack of education about how to build a financial foundation, starting even before we first enter the workforce and well into our retirement years. My name's Dion Payne, and I'm the founder of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm passionate about ending homelessness, and as part of that passion, I chose to look at the systemic barriers that are causing homelessness for women in the first place. The Financially Empowered Women podcast is designed to bring you the best experts from around the world to increase your financial know-how and give you practical and women-specific tips to overcome the challenges that you might be facing. Challenges such as how to negotiate a better salary, demystifying super, or how to navigate a separation and ensure the assets are distributed fairly. My role is to provide you with the best information out there to change your trajectory and become a financially empowered woman, because you deserve it, and the world needs you more than ever to own your worth and help others to do the same. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Financially Empowered Women podcast. Today I've got the privilege of being here with Amanda Cassar, and I'm going to read a little bit about Amanda. So Amanda Cassar is a globally recognised financial expert, author, and advocate for vulnerable clients. As the founder of 2 thriving businesses and the creator of the Financial Abuse Specialist course, Amanda has equipped professionals worldwide with tools to combat financial abuse and empower clients. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Now, tell me a little bit about you, because obviously the area that you deal in is very specialised. How did you get here?
I kind of fell into financial planning like so many people do. I don't think I'd ever even heard of a financial planner when I was in high school. And I ended up leaving and working for a friend of my dad, who back then was, I thought, an insurance guy. So he sort of sold life insurance and retirement planning in Australia superannuation. So somehow over the next 10 years, it evolved from a secretary to a lifey to becoming a personal assistant to a financial advisor. And eventually I went on and did my Master of Financial Planning and bought him out of the business, and became very interested in the area of financial vulnerability and abuse, and got specialist accreditations then in self-managed superannuation, aged care and estate planning to help support that, and then created the course for the financial abuse specialist, which is being rolled out by a group in the UK globally. So it was sort of just an evolution of, seeing the next bright, shiny thing and following that path.
Oh, yeah, but don't sell yourself short, because there's a level of mastery here. You don't sell a course to a global... You don't sell a course to a global organisation if you're, sort of flying by the seat of your pants. So, go you. That's awesome. But for anybody that doesn't know, what exactly is financial abuse?
So that term seems to be quite confronting for a lot of people, but it's usually where either an intimate partner or somebody takes advantage of you. It doesn't have to be someone it can be, a professional or a scammer as well, but quite often those in intimate partnerships are taken advantage of by a loved one, and it can be as simple as not allowing, your female partner access to sanitary products during menstruation, to hiding bank accounts, to forcing people to change estate planning documents, coercive control. You're not allowed to, leave the marriage or the house, or I'll keep the children. Those kind of abuses, where, it makes you uncomfortable or unable to live a normal life financially. So it's an awful and insidious thing, and it's also one of the very easiest ways to control people. So you'll often find in domestic violence, over 90% of cases, there is a form of financial abuse in that as well.
Wow, 90%, that's a huge statistic.
Yeah, it's enormous, but it's not often spoken about. We often, when the Me Too movement came out, it was all about sexual and physical abuse. But there's a huge financial element in that as well. When most women are asked, well, why did you stay if it was so bad? When we, jump on the victim blaming bandwagon, it's usually because of the money. There's no safety or security outside. They'll be cut off all access, if they've been full-time caregivers and don't have access to their own funds. I've even come across women who were, the full-time breadwinners, and the husbands were still taking all the money in that situation when they didn't realise they were in the position of power. So it's a really insidious thing that's used. Often elder abuse we hear about, children getting what we call now inheritance impatience, going, well, it's going to be mine anyway. I'll just take that now. Whether it's, the $20 by the bedside, or grandma's rings, or, I'll just nick that term deposit because I've got, bills for my kids' schooling. So it's a horrible thing, and it's unfortunately everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, in each of those cases that you mentioned, I've heard stories about that, elder abuse, and I like the term that you used, impatient inheritance. Well, is
Inheritance
probably not the right
impatience, yeah.
word, but it's not, that's not a term I've heard before, but I totally get it. I just wonder, is there a sort of a typical type of person that is financially abused? Or does it affect lots of people?
Well, funnily enough, it actually does affect everyone. I've worked with the Hunger Project in Africa, and we met a woman in Uganda who's living on less than $2 a day, breaking rocks. And when her husband left her, he sold the family mattress and her cooking pots. So these people who've got nothing were still being financially abused. Right through, we hear about celebrity cases, where Britney Spears was, had the guardianship or the conservatorship on her by her father, and Mickey Rooney, who'd been in the entertainment industry over 9 decades, was severely abused by his stepson and wife. So, to me, it makes more sense to, if you want a good payday, financially abuse someone with a lot of money. But it can be anyone from, the poorest means. I've seen people on social security where suddenly there's a new love interest when there's, an expectation of a payout, or, so there is no class structure, no, there's no borders when it comes to financial abuse. It does seem that it is more women that are abused. They still say 1 in 7 men are financially abused, so a lot more for women. And that's also to do with, the very traditional roles of, women are the ones who take on the caregiving, whether it's the elderly parents or the younger children, so don't often work as much or earn as much as the men. So, if they're the ones staying home, it is often more difficult. That's not to say, it doesn't happen to men as well.
Yeah, of course. And how would somebody recognise that they are being financially abused?
Look, there's just so many little red flags. It can be just that niggly gut feeling that something's not right. It can be just something's missing from the wallet, to paperwork going missing. Like the elderly person, often we infantilise or think they're stupid, or they're losing the plot, or, Dad, you're just forgetting things. It's like, no, I'm sure I had that. So often, their concerns are diminished or overlooked in the elder space. It can be carers just taking them down, or let's go and get, $50 out, Marjorie, or $100 out, so you've got money in your wallet, and then, half of that goes, goes missing. It can be, forcing a parent to change a will, like, come and live with me, mum, I'll look after you. Change everything to me so all my siblings miss out, and I'll make sure you're taken care of. So, in this, I've got your best interests at heart. So there's just so many different ways. It can be, there's very patriarchal societies and women are expected to work in the family business for free. You know, that's financial abuse. So there's so many different ways and means and red flags out there that it can just vary in every different, not being able to buy pads or tampons when you have your period. That's not okay. That's financial abuse. So there's, you know, so many different ways and means that it can show up. I've even seen, fraudulent insurance claims. Oh, there were the floods everywhere. Let's lodge one as well, pretending that, our place went through or went under. So can you sign that as well? So, there's, if it's dodgy or doesn't feel right, or you run it by someone who goes, those sort of things. There was a hideous murder case in Queensland some years ago that took the headlines for quite a while, where Gerard Baden Clay had killed his wife, and they had 3 young girls, and her family after her death launched a campaign with the hashtag say something. They'd notice him taking cards off their daughter, or she, would only turn up in very shabby old shoes, and she always had the same clothes on, and she wasn't allowed to go shopping. And it was when she decided that the girls were back at school and she wanted to have her career again that he couldn't handle that, she'd be earning and mixing with other people, and he killed her. So the signs can be quite small to start with, but, in some horrific cases escalate quite highly.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we're having this conversation to bring awareness to this topic, because this isn't something that's widely spoken about. I know that your goal is to empower your clients to overcome financial abuse. What are some of the steps that you help them take?
I think recognising financial abuse is a very confronting thing. To think you're financially vulnerable is pretty awful. And there's unfortunately no cookie cutter approach. I can't just give you a little handout and go, look, these are the 5 steps to take and you'll be fine. I wish it was that easy, that, you could wave the magic wand and it's all better. But I think firstly, reaching out to a trusted friend, just, if you just feel something's not right for you, run it by someone who may go, oh my God, that's horrific. I didn't know you were dealing with that. It can validate that thought process that, or it's the, maybe I'm making too much of it. Why does he always want $20 back for the pizza? Or why do I always have to pay for this? Or, why can't I have any money outside the groceries? It's those sort of feelings that, is this normal? And getting some validation about, whether you are in that situation or not to start with. And then it depends how, I suppose, the situation goes. Like any domestic violence case, it's only the person in that situation who knows their actual safety limits and whether they're going to be safe when they leave. So it's difficult to say, look, you just got to get out of there. I think being a person who's available for a friend is really important. And there's wording we can even use if we've noticed things. I know a psychologist said to me, very non-confronting wording can follow the formula of I feel when because. So I feel hurt or angry or upset when Bill doesn't let you go out on a Friday night, or doesn't let you have a new dress, or whatever it may be, because, we used to have such a lovely time out together, or whatever it may be, because then we're talking about our feelings, and it's really hard for the other person to say, well, that's a load of rubbish when you're talking about your own feelings. If you're sitting there going, look, Tom's an absolute rat bag, he doesn't let you do this and that and the other, we can sort of be, opening that can of worms, lose the friendship. It's very confronting, and the person may not be even ready to face or discuss those sort of issues. I know of a lawyer who spoke to a man who was going through a divorce process and had no clue that his wife was not only perpetrating domestic violence against him, which he's like, really? That's what that is? Just that she used to belt me because I couldn't work, or didn't bring home enough money, and she'd siphoned off tens of thousands and sent it back to family overseas. And again, just clueless that he was a victim of both domestic and financial abuse. So it can be confronting when the scales fall off or other people approach it. And I suppose it's like when we learn something, we can hear it that many times, and until we're ready for it to land, it's not going to. So, just saying, look, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here for you, or that just doesn't feel right to me, and if you want to discuss it, I'm here. I'm a safe place. I have a spare bedroom if you need a meal or two. So, I know of one lady who had to skim $20 off the groceries each week and hide the grocery cards at a friend's house so she could have money for food when she left her abusive relationship, when he went away one time. So, being that friend who's there for you, who can help you out, who can give you the couch to sleep on, or, the spare room when you need it, is really important.
Yeah. And I really resonate with that as well. It's about keeping the door open to that friendship, so there is that safety aspect. So that, as you said, when it does land for that person that, oh, this isn't right and I'm ready to leave, I'm ready to change the situation, that they've still got friends, that they've still got family that really care for them, and they know that because there's been that non-judgmental approach.
Yeah, it's can be quite difficult to finally make that move, because often there's the threats as well. So just being open to, I'm here for you when you need me. And the narcissists and those in those powerful situations, one of their biggest tools is isolation. So you lose your friends, you lose your family over many years, you are emotionally battered, you've been told you're no good, you're useless, you're terrible with money, where would you be without me? So often by the time the person's, hit rock bottom and ready to go, there's no self-confidence anymore. There's, absolute terror of facing the world on their own. And what often I find is these women are absolute budgeting rock stars. They can make, $100 grocery bill go further than anyone in their life, but they've got zero confidence in themselves anymore because they've just been belittled and abused mentally and emotionally for so long. They don't see that in themselves. So having someone who still believes in them is so important.
Absolutely. What would you say is your favourite turnaround story?
There's the lady who probably introduced me to, the world of financial abuse. She was a rock star investigative journalist, had her own property and trusts, and went into a marriage that was emotionally and financially abusive. When she crawled out of that, she ended up with adult onset epilepsy and had a mild stroke. Wasn't until he said to her, look, stop messing around with the media and get a real job. I want you stacking shelves in Woolworths. And it wasn't until her daughter turned around and went, that's not who you are, mummy, that she had that light bulb moment going, what sort of an example am I leaving for my daughter if I keep putting up with this? I can't show her what a strong, capable, independent woman does if I keep putting up with this. So she was the one who was skimming the grocery money. She's now found an awesome man. She's moved to the States. She's having the time of her life. She's as loved up as it gets. It's sickening. Beautiful turnaround story. So, there is light at the end of the tunnel. She was talking to his mother sometime later, and she'd mentioned that he'd done this kind of thing before. So, he's a repeat offender. And, she had the rose-coloured glasses on. He was just this lovely guy and all the rest. So I think the lessons from that are about, maintaining some sort of independence. I don't think we talk enough about binding financial agreements, or we used to call them the prenup. They can be taken out at any time if you've got a big inheritance coming, or, you've been married 30 years, you can still do a binding financial agreement if you need to. So, we need to start making this the normal thing. I mean, as much as, I'd love to go, whatever's mine's mine, whatever's yours is mine. It's if you want to protect yourself from that, get a BFA.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh, unless you're becoming an abuser, then it's okay.
What would be your advice to a 15-year-old girl that's coming up into this world?
Oh, look, letting her know right from the start she is a strong, capable, independent, amazing lady. And I think being financially educated and literate from a very early age is really important, and never ever giving up complete financial independence. I think you can still have beautiful, loving couples who maintain some sort of financial, emotional, whatever independence. And a lot of it just comes down to communication. You know, you get together with this person, you're talking about your beautiful future together. The last thing you're going is, what did your parents teach you about money? Do they believe money doesn't grow on trees? Are we going to have separate accounts, or are we going to combine our accounts? Are you going to pay half, or are we going to do 30%? What, we don't have these, in-depth conversations about what are your belief systems around money. Are you a spender? Are you a hoarder? I mean, we might see these things as we go, but I think understanding where our partner comes from, which, you can start checking that stuff out when you meet family. So having those conversations, being super open. I mean, if you want to have children, you don't sort of talk about that 10 years after you get married. You want to know that stuff before you jump in, because you don't want to be 2 years down the track going, actually, yeah, no, I've never wanted them, and the other person wants 4. So it's just as simple as, where do you see money? Do we contribute equally to this relationship? Or is it, in a percentage of our wages that we both put in? Do we keep separate bank accounts but have one where, we both contribute a certain amount, and then whatever's left over, we go on a holiday? Or, how do we cover our bills? Are you responsible for this and I'm responsible for that? Just very open and clear communication, like on anything, so there's no surprises later. Or, things change all the time. So as it comes up, instead of sweeping it under the carpet and thinking, oh, I hope he doesn't notice the whatever, then it's that you don't have to hide the new dress or the shoes. That's my money. I could do with that as I please, but we're still meeting all our joint goals and objectives, and we are putting into the money, house money for the deposit, or we want to take a year off for the baby, so we want a bit more in the kitty. Whatever those goals are, talk about them, and don't stop talking about them until you're both clear. Write it down if you have to, but I don't think anybody, discusses it to the extent. I've known one bloke, when you've been talking about financial abuse, ticked all the boxes and went, I had no idea that's what I was doing. He wasn't doing it to be malicious or an asshole. He just had no clue. He thought he was the man, he was the breadwinner, he controlled everything, and that's just how it worked. Just because of no discussions. If he wanted her to stay home and have the kid, some women are more than happy to be that traditional wife. But what does it mean for you? Can you buy a new dress without asking? What does it look like? So being really clear on whatever the roles are that you both want is really important.
Yeah. Look, that is fantastic advice, and there's a lot to think about in what you said there. It reminds me of, I did stay home with my kids until, while they were quite young. And there was always this, because my husband and I didn't communicate so well about money, and there was always this sense of guilt that I felt, even though I knew deep down I was doing a really important job staying home. It was like, well, I'm not contributing financially, and therefore I don't really, it was always, I did go and buy new things, yeah. But there was that sort of guilt in there as well of like, oh, if I'm not contributing financially, do I have the right to it? So I could really identify with what you were sharing there.
Yeah, and I mean, is there a bigger job than raising the children? And I think, as mercenary as it sounds, if you put a monetary value on that, like if you just go, right, that's it, we've had the kids, I'm going back to work. Do we need an au pair? Do we need someone to run them around? Do we need someone to make their lunches? Are we going to get a cleaner in now to do, it'd cost $40,000 to $60,000 to replace what you do each year when you are a stay-at-home mother. That's not a nothing role. It's one of the biggest and most rewarding and challenging roles you'll ever do, and it has value. And I don't mean just in a monetary way, the emotional growth of your children and the spiritual growth and the learnings they have. And you can never get that time back from when they're, littlies before they go to school. But, is that what you want as a couple? Does hubby want you to stay at home and do that role? Does he want to do the role? There's plenty of guys now going, well, you can earn more than me, I'll be the stay-at-home dad. So what does it look like in your family? I don't think there's rights or wrongs anymore. It's just what works for you.
Yeah, and what you agree to through that open communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Amanda, this has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much. For anybody that is either concerned about financial abuse that they've witnessed or that they may be going through, or somebody that just really resonates with what you've shared and wants to get in touch, how's the best way for them to do that?
Probably LinkedIn is the easiest way to find me. So if you just look up Amanda Cassar, Wealth Planning Partners. If you do go on the internet, there is an amandacassar.com.au. I'm not the yoga instructor in America. I'm the financial advisor in Australia. Don't get us confused.
I'll be sure to put a link on the show notes to the right
I'm the less
Amanda
flexible
Cassar.
one. Oh, thank you so much for having me, Dion. It's been lovely.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for all that amazing information that you shared.
Not a problem.